Ever since the Switch first came out, there was rumors that it would be used for VR. We've seen patent applications before. I feel like the first year that the Switch came out, we saw some patent applications from Nintendo for a device that was very similar to the Switch being used in a VR headset, that much in the same way that you can buy VR headsets and then slide your phone into it. The Switch would work like that in this patent application. And Nintendo World Report, Arcade Girl 64, I think it is, on Twitter. She works for Nintendo World Report, and she wrote an article about the idea that the breadcrumbs have been laid out, and she's been told that virtual reality could be coming to the Switch soon. Now, for myself, I don't know why that's not working. Oh, there we go. For myself, I don't think that this makes a lot of sense. But let's talk about why people are saying that VR could be coming to the Switch soon. CNET had reported that there were data miners, and the data miners had discovered a screen splitting VR mode in the Nintendo Switch's firmware. And in the past, Mr. Kimishima, who was the predecessor to Mr. Furukawa, who's the current president of Nintendo, he said, "Yeah, we're looking at VR, but not anything anytime soon." Nintendo France's managing director also said that consumers are not patient with entertainment if you're not able to deliver it in an all-inclusive package. A lot of people, I mean, this certainly wouldn't be Nintendo's first foray. A lot of people are saying this would not be Nintendo's first foray into virtual reality. They had the Virtual Boy, after all. If you're watching the YouTube video, you can see it on my shelf behind me. The Virtual Boy was famously a huge flop for Nintendo and cost them a whole bunch of money. Reggie Fils-Aimé ended up telling Ars Technica at one point that they were actively looking into VR, and who knows what that really means. A lot of people are assuming, because of the modular nature of the Nintendo Switch, that you could wear a headset that had those lenses on it, and then you could just slide the Nintendo Switch into it in front, and then you would have a VR device. Couple that with the Joy-Cons having motion control built in, holding the Joy-Cons in your hands gives you, I mean, it makes perfect sense for why that would work. I still don't think that this is how it's going to happen, though. I don't think that you're going to get VR with this Switch. I think that, first off, if you just pause the show, or, if you got headphones on it, you don't have to pause the show. Go pick up your Switch and hold it in your hand and feel the heft of it. Just the device, not the Joy-Cons. It is a dense piece of electronics. It's very, very heavy. This is not light. And the idea of putting this into a like a headset in front of you, I feel like even with you would have to have it counterweighted on the back or something, because this is going to be pulling your head down. This is so incredibly heavy. You compare that to a cell phone. Cell phones are relatively light. This thing is really heavy. And I don't think that this would work for VR. Not even a little. Couple that with the fact that it has a 720p screen. 720p. That's not high enough resolution. Everything's going to look super pixelated and kind of crappy. When you have a device with a screen this size and 720p resolution, and you put it this close to your face, especially when you have those lenses that are like magnifiers, that's going to make those pixels look huge. And we all know, I mean, Apple has convinced us all that we don't want to be able to see the pixels. That's a problem when you can see the pixels. And I for one agree with Apple. When I got my first buzzword Retina display phone and I was using it, and then I grabbed one of the old ones and I was looking at it, I was like, oh man, that's really ugly. When you have something that has a higher resolution, or a low resolution, I mean, and you put it that close to your face, you're going to see the pixels. I don't think that the Nintendo Switch, as it currently stands, is designed to work with VR in the way that people are assuming that it would. And I think that that kind of leads me in the direction of, well, okay, let's pretend for a fact that everybody is correct, and that Nintendo is going to be making the Switch a VR system. The only way that I can see that working is if Nintendo makes a new Nintendo Switch. And we've heard rumors about that. Like, I think it was the Nikkei publication. It's a business publication in Japan, and they were talking about how they were talking about the fact, or the rumor that Nintendo was bringing out a mini Switch. Now, how would that work? Okay, let's say that this mini Switch is the VR thing that Nintendo World Report is talking about here. How do I put this? First off, I think that the Joy-Cons still have to come off. Oh, actually, wait a second. No, the Joy-Cons would have to stay on unless the new mini Switch had motion detection built into this kind into the base device itself. So either the Joy-Cons are permanently attached, or there's a gyroscope in the device itself, adding more heft to it. The device has to be smaller, has to be lighter, won't have as good a battery life. And it would also have to have, and the reason for that is to make it light enough so that you could hold it on your face. The next thing that it would have to have is a higher resolution display, and it would have to run games at a high enough frame rate. Usually, I think in order to avoid getting like seasick when you're playing, I think that like the target frame rate is 120 hertz. So now you're talking about a device that does not, like, we're talking about a device that doesn't have wires going anywhere, and that's one of the reasons why I think that the Philippe Laveau, the managing director of Nintendo France, he says in order for it to go mainstream, people want an all-inclusive package. They want to buy it and to be able to put it on their head without wires all over the place in order to play. And I kind of agree with that. Like, one of the reasons I've not bought a VR system yet, and there's more than one reason, but one of the reasons is because I'm terrified that I'll be playing a game and I'm going to step on the cord and then rip something off of the shelf, or rip the cord and have to buy another one. Like, that bothers me. Like, that idea, it makes me nervous. So we're looking at something that is smaller than the Nintendo Switch, with higher resolution and a worse battery life. Only so, and it has to be a worse battery life because the battery has to be smaller in order to make it lighter. And you're doing all of that just so that you can slap it into a headset in order to have it still be comfortable while you're playing. And I think that recipe of things is a very, very tall order and very unlikely to happen. I think that Nintendo, if they patented this for any reason, it's for something down the line, something a long way down the line. I don't think that it's something that's going to happen soon. Would I be happy to be wrong? Sure. I would love it if Nintendo would do some crazy thing. And that's one of my favorite things about Nintendo. is that they surprise us. They constantly do something really weird that surprises people. Now, I'm looking at chat. Gary Gizmo says, "Could you imagine Legend of Zelda game in VR? So first person Link. That would be interesting. I think that would be very interesting." Let's see, what else do we have? Just thinking about some mobile phones have the screen size of a Switch. I think the problem isn't with the size. Right, but the screen size for the Switch, and you can't see this on the video right now, but the screen size of the Switch is much smaller than the device itself. In order to power this thing, you need a big battery, and that battery is heavy. Pick up your Switch. It's really, really heavy. Let's see. Hopple says 8-bit retro virtual reality 720p or no problem. I think that's a game that nobody's looking for. Maybe if Nintendo announced an upgraded tier Switch display at 1080p, it might work. See, now the reason why that won't work, Roki Games, and that's like I applaud the idea, but now the games that you're playing have to be they're up-resed, right? And one of two things will happen. When you dock your Switch, you can play games at 1080p usually, depending on the game. And when you do that, the reason why you're able to do that is because Nintendo's saying, okay, we don't have to worry about the battery because this thing's being charged, so it's not a big deal. We can run it all we want. If you have a 1080p screen in this, there's a lot more pixels for the device to render. And that means that the processor has to work harder. And if the processor's working harder, it's burning through that battery much, much faster. And a game where you would normally get a couple hours playing on battery mode, you would get much less time. And I think that with the reaction that a lot of people had when Nintendo first announced the battery life of the Switch, a lot of people were ticked at that. I was fine with it, but a lot of people thought that the amount of hours that you could play a game like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was far too short. And that would be even shorter when you're doing VR. And again, this is really heavy. So you're going to have a bigger battery to run that thing for a longer period of time. Let's see. What if... So I saw somebody in chat had said, what if you put the gyroscope in the VR headset? That's a possibility. But that also means that when you dock this into the gyroscope thing, now, or into the headset, now the headset is powered, so it's also draining battery from the Nintendo Switch. Hopple jokingly says, buy 2 Switches, 1 for each eye. Roki Games said, put the gyroscope in the VR device headset. So I think that there's a lot of reasons why this won't work, and I anxiously await Nintendo proving me wrong. But I don't think that this is happening anytime soon. And that's just how I think about it. What do you think?